Scott McNamara joining us, the Oneida County DA, and talking about the Chadwicks case this morning. If you have any questions, feel free to forward them along, 624-0870, or text us, 623-0373.
Scott, you were talking about charges before we went to the break, and I know Dawn is forefront of this case here in the jury selection the other day, or the grand jury.
The hearing.
The hearing, I'm sorry. And you talked about the charges. Some sticking power for you off the bat. Do you think the charges will move? Murder charges, will they come about on Friday?
We anticipate to. Well, first of all, I don't anticipate that we'll file any new charges before we go to the grand jury, because if any charges that we add, we have to go back and have another hearing. So
Right.
what we really want to do is to move the case forward, and all of what we're doing right now is preliminary stages, so we can't even try the defendants on the charges they're on right now. We have to go to a grand jury. So our main concern right now is to get all the evidence that we can gather before a grand jury, and then go after the people that are responsible for this homicide and this assault.
How important is Christopher Leonard going to be in that decision?
Well, he's very important. Obviously. He's a surviving eyewitness to the event. So
and a victim at this point. No charges being brought against them.
Right. There's a lot of rumors out there, and honestly, I can't talk a lot about the facts, but the only thing I've really come out and tried to slow down was there's a lot of allegations that this beating was over him and his brother molesting children, which is absolutely not true. There's no proof of that, and that's not what our understanding why it started. And so and I feel bad for him, and I feel bad for the memory of his brother that some people are out there peddling that story, because we have done a thorough investigation to determine whether or not that information was true, and everything that we have shows that it is not true. And there's absolutely a lot of evidence that would show that those allegations are absolutely not true.
So no wrongdoing in their part.
No, there's no wrongdoing on their part, and and as I've heard Frank Coots and I've heard Chief and Sarah both say, these young men right now, everything that we have shows that they are just truly victims in a very bizarre case.
Scott, you've been doing a great job with the folks from your office, combining with the forces from the New Hartford Police and the state police that you just mentioned. Do the feds get involved at any level here?
No, they haven't gotten involved, and I don't anticipate them getting involved. There's times when they will show up, but this case is a case that would be traditionally handled by a state prosecution. They have not contacted me. Typically, they come in when you have more of an organized crime, like they do RICO and those type of cases, where this doesn't really fit into that. We obviously have an organization, but you'd have to show a lot of things, and honestly, in a case like this, I think that we would be able to get more time out of the people than the feds would.
With this case, there's a lot of curiosity about the building itself. I drove by last night on my way to camp, saw, I think, a reporter, maybe a student reporter, filming something on the outside there. It didn't appear like there was much activity on the inside. I know there's a candlelight vigil going on right nearby this evening, scheduled for this evening. Are you concerned at all with public security and public safety in this time when there's so much focus on the building itself?
No, not really. As everybody kind of knows, this is a group that was under the radar, which, actually, as your guest yesterday talked, isn't all that surprising.
Right.
It's kind of how some of these groups operate. It's the seclusion, although it's front and center on one of the main streets in that area, Oneida Street. They kind of operate behind the scenes, and they're not out there. So, no, and I don't see any of that. Actually, I think right now a lot of the energy is being directed against the church and against the people that live there. but it seems as though they're staying out of it.
Well, and I guess what I meant to say was the church, whoever owns the church, the Irwins do own the church. I mean, they still have their rights as property owners is what I was getting at here.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
And they're like anybody else. And, different people have asked me different questions. And, it's like, well, they didn't want the police and they didn't want the government there. And, I always smile because I was a narcotics prosecutor for the most of my career before I was the DA. Most people don't want the police
That's right.
and the government in their
Bad
house.
sign.
It's usually not something that's welcomed by most people, especially people that are doing things that, might not want the police to know about. So, but no, I mean, at this point, we're just continuing our investigation. We have had a lot of help from former members coming forward. I continue to urge if there's anybody else out there that might be listening, if you were a former member, especially under the current administration of that church, we are very interested in talking to you. We need to know what was going on in that church, obviously for us to go forward and how it works. And it's, a lot of people think, well, you've got all the facts, you can go forward. It's so much different than a book or a movie or a TV show. For us to go forward, we have to have people that we can call as a witness to tell a jury or a judge what happened. So, it's like, for example, when something happens, I'll give you a perfect example. If there's a fight and you have 3 people in a room and one gets killed, you have to call one of the survivors to testify. So a lot of times you're put in a situation where you got to make a deal with somebody that might possibly have some culpability because there are no other witnesses. So when it comes to a group or an organization where nobody knows anything about because they're kind of secluded and they operate behind the scenes, it's very important that we get people that have that information that can come forward and tell us so that we can ultimately, at the end, explain that to a jury or explain it to a judge, however the case might be. I would suspect a jury. It's up to a defendant which they choose, but we need that, and we encourage the people that have that information to come forward because ultimately we want to hold the people that ultimately should be held accountable for this crime.
Talking to Oneida County DA Scott McNamara on the Talk of the Town, 100.7 FM WUTQ.
You mentioned your office fielding a lot of calls and tips, something you're just talking about there, and another portion of what you mentioned, the media and some of the folks thinking that things are happening that aren't, some rumors that are coming out. What are you hearing from the folks, if you can tell us a little bit about the folks that have contacted you, the prior members of the church? Is it conducive to what we're hearing as far as the exclusivity of it, staying away from other folks in the community?
I can't talk too much about what our evidence is. I will say I think the biggest concern the public has reached out to me is that they feel that people are undercharged, other people should be charged. And I've said it, and I'm in a difficult situation. I can't say certain things.
Sure.
And I think certain people would just wish I would just come out and say things. I can't do that, but I can just continue to say the same thing I've been saying all along, is the charges that currently are filed are just preliminary charges, and I anticipate that we will go to the grand jury and ask for a lot of other different charges, and maybe even charges that are more significant than what are currently charged, and including other people. So, for example, right now we had 6 people charged, and there's 2 with manslaughter and 4 with assault. That isn't necessarily what has to come out of a grand jury, and there might not only just be 6 people. So I encourage people to just, at this point, be a little bit patient with the system, because that's how the system works. And what we need to try them is we need an indictment. And an indictment we get from a grand jury. So it doesn't really matter what the New Hartford police charge at this point. We need the grand jury to consider all the evidence. We need an indictment. And ultimately, we will seek the highest charges that we feel are appropriate in this case, and all charges that we feel that are appropriate in all the people that we think that should be held accountable, that we feel that we can prove to a grand jury.
In your efforts going forward and to comfort the community a little bit, do you have some words for them, for some folks out there that?
Sure. I mean, I cannot stress enough that, obviously this is a significant case. It is a disturbing case. It's disturbing for the community, but it's disturbing for the people who work in a DA's office.
Sure.
I mean, we don't see these type of things every day. And I have the best team in my office on this. Obviously myself, Don Lupi, who's one of my first assistants, Mike Calusa, who's another one of my first assistants, Josh Bauer, who is another one of my mid-level assistants, and they're all on there for different reasons, and they have certain expertise that we feel is important in this case. And I have 23 assistants, and if it takes all 23 to bring justice in this case, all 23 will work on it. But I have one assistant, Steve Cox. He does legal research. That's all he's been doing for me, is writing me memos telling me what charges we can and can't file. There are certain charges that, because of court rulings, have made the charge, like when you read it in the code, in the statute, you say, oh, that fits. But unfortunately, the Court of Appeals has really gutted that section of the law. So he's been spending most of his time reading all of those court decisions and telling me, does our case fit?
Specific criteria.
Yes. Can we charge that, or can we seek a charge in the grand jury for that? And then there's, obviously I have other people that, have expertise on different things. So, I mean, the people I just named are people that are working on the forefront of it. There's also a lot of my assistants that are in the background doing different things that they have expertise on. So, we are throwing everything we have at this. I mean, we want to do whatever we possibly can to bring justice to Christopher and Lucas, and also bring justice to the community, which is obviously looking for justice.
Sounds like a lot of work. And what Dave brought up at the beginning of the interview, you aren't sleeping, Scott. So
no, that's true. But that's part of the job. And somebody said that to me the other day, and I got to say this much. When I was in high school, I wanted to do what I'm doing right now. I wanted to be a prosecutor. I wanted to be the district attorney, and I got to do that. And something, these cases come along, and I'm fortunate to have the job, and I just hope that as we do in every case, that we can bring justice to the victims in the case, and we will do everything within our power, within the law, that's ethical, to bring justice to both Christopher, Lucas, and hopefully the entire community.
It's interesting. When we talked with a cult expert yesterday, Scott, he was saying that New York State has been a breeding ground because of the amount of large properties and wooded areas for this type of activity. I'm wondering if you will consult with members of law enforcement in other portions of the state that might have dealt with something like this as you move forward in the process for you.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we've already reached out to different DA's offices on different issues that we're dealing with, and excuse me. And when I was listening to your interview yesterday, I actually heard the one location he was talking about. So we're going to reach out and see.
Ellenville, I think. Yep.
I think that's what he said.
Right.
So, and so we're definitely, as a matter of fact, in one of the most unique emails that I got, on a side note, he's actually a lawyer from Los Angeles. He said that he'd be more than willing to come out here and help us.
Wow.
Now, I said that was a nice compliment, but obviously I got 23 assistants, and I'm pretty proud of those 23, and they can do a good job. But
sure,
people are actually willing to, or sending us emails saying they're willing to come and help.
You're getting
us.
that now that we're having more national attention with
yeah,
this.
absolutely.
Right. Well, best of luck, Scott. Thanks for sharing information with us, and hope you'll stop by again soon with more info.
All right. Thanks, Dave.